Hi, everyone. My name's David Bushman. I'm television curator at the Museum of Television and Radio, and I want to welcome all of you to the museum's 23rd annual William Paley Television Festival. That clip that you just saw is from Route 66, which is one of the shows that the creator, Eric Kripke of Supernatural, often cites as one of his influences, and that explains why we picked it. That's part of our collection. We have 120,000 television and radio programs in our collection, and I would encourage all of you to visit the museum in Beverly Hills and in New York when you're there. Tonight, we're really excited to be honoring Supernatural, which was named one of the top 5 new series of 2005 by Entertainment Weekly. Supernatural is a vibrant, fresh, exciting show that combines all sorts of genre elements: family drama, comedy, suspense, and on top of that, it just scares the hell out of you. I really want to thank Warner Brothers for all they did in helping make this night happen, particularly the PR department, Holly Alice and Winston Cito. Thank you very much. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to introduce right up front the cast and the creative team, our panelists for the evening. Introduce them very briefly. Eric's going to say a few words about what you're going to see. Then we're going to watch an episode of the program, which Eric will talk about. Then we'll bring the panelists back up. I'll ask some questions, and then you guys are on. So start thinking of questions now, okay? So let me start with the panelist intros. First, one of the producers of Supernatural, please welcome Peter Johnson. Next, we have co-executive producer and director Kim Manners. Next, we have co-executive producer and writer John Scheiban. Next, he plays Dean Winchester. Please welcome Jensen Ackles. Next, Sam Winchester. Please welcome Jared Padalecki. Next, the executive producer and director, Robert Singer. Finally, the man whose vision created Supernatural is the creator, executive producer, and writer. Please welcome Eric Kripke.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. It's a little overwhelming and amazing, quite frankly. This is, to my knowledge, the first gathering of any Supernatural fans anywhere, so thank you to you, and give yourself a round of applause. Just quick story from the set of Supernatural, because it just happened last night, which is they shoot up in Vancouver, and they were shooting up at Stanley Park, or about to begin production, which is a public park up in Vancouver. And we're about to start filming when they got a call that there was a man about 100, 200 yards from the film company with a handgun. And they called, Jared and Jensen, said, don't come to set. There's a man with a handgun. And they shut down the whole production for 2 hours. They called in the police. They called in the SWAT team. They stormed. This is all true. Very true. This all just happened last night. They all stormed SWAT team stormed Stanley Park looking for this man with a gun. And it turned out to be a member of our special effects crew. So... good times from the set of Supernatural. Anyway, so I'm supposed to introduce the episode, so let me do that. The episode we're showing tonight is Scarecrow. All right, Scarecrow fans in the house. Scarecrow was written by the very brilliant John Scheiben. So round of applause for John. And it was directed by the very brilliant Kim Manners. And so the reason we chose Scarecrow is we sort of felt it was just a good mix of sort of everything that the show is about. We think there's really some good drama between the brothers. We think there's some good comedy. We think there's good mythology about Dad, and this is the episode that introduces Meg, which people online had problems with. I seem to remember. And it's just we think a scary, damn good episode, and based on a good series of very fun urban legends about scarecrows. And so I'll stop rattling on. Enjoy Scarecrow. We'll talk after. Thank you.
Are there any X-Files fans out there in the audience? So every time I see this episode, I feel like shaking Dean and saying, "What are you doing trusting the cigarette-smoking man?" I'm going to bring our panelists back up on stage. Our first panelist is co-executive producer and director on Supernatural. He's directed nearly 300 hours of television, including 53 episodes of The X-Files, which he also produced. Please welcome Kim Manners. You're all the way down. Our next panelist is a co-executive producer and writer on Supernatural. He began his career as a staff writer on The X-Files, writing or co-writing over 20 episodes and eventually serving as executive producer. He was also co-creator and executive producer of The Lone Gunman and supervising producer of Harsh Realm, and has written for and produced Star Trek Enterprise, Threat Matrix, and USA Network's Frankenstein. Please welcome John Scheiben. Our next panelist portrays Dean, wisecracking older Winchester brother. Before Supernatural, he was Before Supernatural, he was familiar to WB viewers as Jason Teague on Smallville. I don't know if I'm going to get through these intros. He had a recurring role on Dawson's Creek and was a regular on Dark Angel. He received 3 Daytime Emmy nominations for his role on Days. Please welcome Jensen Ackles. Our next panelist portrays Sam, the rebellious younger Winchester brother. Before Supernatural, he was best known as Rory's boyfriend, Dean, on Gilmore Girls. His film credits include House of Wax, Cheaper by the Dozen, Flight of the Phoenix. Please welcome Jared Padalecki. Our next panelist, executive produces Supernatural and directs episodes of the series. Formerly vice president of NBC Drama Development, he later teamed with Daniel Blatt to produce films and TV series including V, The Final Battle, and Stephen King's Cujo. On his own, he has executive produced Midnight Caller, Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, and Reasonable Doubts, which he also created. Please welcome Robert Singer. Our final panelist today is the creator of Supernatural, in addition to executive producing and writing for the series. His previous TV credits include the WB series Tarzan. He also wrote and co-produced. He also wrote and co-produced the feature film Boogeyman. Please welcome Eric Kripke. Okay, I'll start with a few questions before we open it to you guys. Eric, the first one will be for you. I'm just kind of curious how this the idea for this series, the genesis of it, and how it evolved from concept to what we see on the screen.
For a really long time, I wanted to do a show about American folklore and urban legends, sort of kind of a subject that, even back to elementary school, I've been, kind of obsessed with. As a matter of fact, my very, very first TV pitch when I first started in town, when I was 23, 24, was an urban legend show. And I kept trying different versions of it and kept getting smacked down. I tried to do it as an anthology, and then I had this idea of like a bunch of reporters in a van, like Scooby-Doo style. All these sort of terrible ideas, and then I was working with Warner Brothers and had just come off of Tarzan, and and they said, what show would you want to do? And I said, well, an urban legend show. And they said, well, what's the concept? And I had this really long, elaborate storyline that I'd spent weeks and weeks on about a reporter, and it was almost exactly Night Stalker, which is hilarious. And they kind of looked at me and they were like, nah. They're like, any other, what else? And I said, well, because I literally scribbled it in my notebook the day before, which was, I said, well, it could be like Route 66, like two guys on a road trip. And they're like, we love that, do that. And so it just kind of came out of nowhere and just sort of developed from there. And it turned out to be just the right, the right way into this show, because they can just drive it. The boys can just drive in and out of a different horror movie every week. So,
did you at that point know, in terms of characters, who those two guys were? I mean, how did this whole family element, which is so important to the show? I mean, even Jared says to the girl in this episode, "I've got to go back because it's my family." How did that whole family aspect?
Just you write what you know, and I'm from a very close-knit family, and I have a big brother, and I have a lot of really great friends, and just sort of the way guys talk and the way they communicate without ever really communicating anything, and so it just kind of grew out of that, and so I knew I wanted to do, in terms of the characters, I knew I wanted, the little brother to, be conflicted and have a lot of the angst and problems, which I threw right to Jared. And I wanted a big brother just be a total smartass. I mean, that's how I started, and so and it's with a show like this that's with the genre and it's sort of out there, it really needs like a grounding influence, and to ground the show into family and elements of family, and that the care that these brothers have for each other really helps us, because these two guys.
Big hug.
Just pour it in the glass. Pour it in the glass of water.
Yeah, because these two guys, I mean, the relationship they have. I mean, sometimes we have good subject matter, and sometimes we don't. But the relationship of the brothers, these two actors always sees us through. So,
were you familiar with their work, or did you just bring in a ton of actors to audition for the roles?
We auditioned everybody in town, as you always do, kind of on these pilots.
Uh-huh.
My wife was quite the Gilmore Girls fan, so I knew. So I knew Jared's work, and Jensen, our director, David Nutter, who directed the pilot, knew Jensen from was it Dark Angel? Probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he knew him from Dark Angel, and so Dark Angel, Jensen and Dark Angel. Woo! I mean, come on. And so when we were casting the characters, it was David Nutter who said, we have to fly down Jensen, who was up shooting Smallville at the time, so he wasn't really in the pilot pool. And thank God we did, because he walked. Actually, the story, which was funny, is Jensen walked in the room and met with us, and David and Peter Johnson and I, and we talked to him, and we walked out the door, and we looked at each other, and we were so excited, and we were like, we found him, we found Sam.
I didn't get flown down. I drive myself.
Yeah.
So I just wanted that to be known.
And so these things just kind of form as puzzle pieces come together. And it wasn't until we met Jared that we were like, well, that's Sam. And we're like, and then Jensen could be Dean, and then it all just kind of it all kind of came together from there.
It's real interesting. Well, how about you guys, Jared and Jensen? Can you tell us?
I'll let Jensen take that
from your.
You go ahead.
Oh, Jensen, that's totally you. What was
Honestly.
What's the exact question?
The question is.
Spelling bee?
Can
you use the word?
Spell leopard.
Use that in a sentence.
Leper?
Leopard.
No. The question was, can you talk about the audition process from your perspective?
Well, it's interesting, actually, for me, hearing it from Eric's perspective. I had obviously been working with Warner Brothers for Gilmore Girls, and the 5 years prior to doing the show, I'd worked on Gilmore Girls and sort of developed a relationship with some of the people at the Warner Brothers offices, and I had kind of heard about a few of the pilots coming out, and I read this one in particular, and I really enjoyed the characters, and it really struck me as something that I remembered hearing sort of a one-sentence breakdown of like, it's kind of Supernatural, it's called Supernatural. And I was thinking like, great, Charmed or Buffy, which are all great shows, but not the show I wanted to be a part of. I didn't want to do Roswell or Charmed or Buffy. And then when I read it, I was like, wow, this is very interesting and so much more than just like a scary show. So
What appealed to you about it?
Well, I grew up son of an English teacher, so she was always big, and she actually taught heroes, myths, and legends, so I was familiar with the mythology and sort of the Joseph Campbell teachings of Joseph Campbell. And
Didn't rub off that she was an English teacher.
didn't rub off, yeah, it didn't. I just worked till 4:30 this morning in Vancouver, so I'm a
Kind of
little
interesting that you mentioned
worse for
Joseph
wear.
Campbell, because there's a little bit of the reluctant hero.
Very much. I mean, there's so much more than just the reluctant hero. I mean, when you get into the archetypes, there's sort of, each script is just bursting at the seams with archetypes. And, last thing I think these people want to hear is me go into an explanation of, I love the script, I love the character. We're doing a answer.
I'm awake.
Okay.
So your agent sent you the script, and you were auditioning for Sam all along.
Right. I guess where the process, or how the process where it wasn't reached me was read the script, see if you like the character, see if you like the script. It was sort of like, do you mesh with this? Do you feel that you can mesh with this script? And I felt I could, and so I went in and I met some of the guys, and I re-met Nutter, and sat in an office with, who was it? Kripke, was it?
It was, me, Nutter, Peter Johnson. We were at the Wonderland offices, and he came in. And he had such energy and just so lived the character. Just so was the guy. It's a cliche to say that, but he really was. So it was an easy choice.
And did you feel real good about it coming out?
Well, yeah. It was by no means that short a process. I mean, that was sort of the beginning of a week or 2 week long finding of scripts and characters, and I think the scripts are still being rewritten. I remember I'd seen a script, and they're like, this is changing. Read the script, but it has nothing to do with this. Or
Right, yeah.
So much, which is much like it is nowadays. We get a script, and they're like, okay, we're shooting this in a week, but it will be a completely, it's just like, it always can get better, and everybody's always working hard up to the very last second, until they call action. People are working here, people are working in Canada, just, sprinting.
Okay. Jensen, what was your experience?
Pretty much the same.
Well said, Jensen.
Yeah. Well, like Eric said, they had originally brought me in for the role of Sam, and I knew David Nutter very well. I'd worked on testing for a number of pilots before that, so I felt very comfortable with him and with his recommendation of me coming in, and he felt good about it. And I had a conversation with him on the phone before I came in, and just he kind of gave me a spiel about Sam and what he thought, and then I read the script, and I was just like, what about Dean? I like Dean. He's funny. But I studied for Sam, and I went in there, and I actually kind of studied for Dean a little bit too, just in case. And I went in there and I read for Sam, and like Eric said, and they were like, they were pleased with it. And then went home that evening and got a phone call, and they said, well, there's this guy, Jared Pada something.
That's it.
Pada something. Yeah. And they really are liking him for one of the brothers, and I'm like, okay. So of course I look him up online, and I'm like,
You thought I was hot.
This guy's smoking hot. I can't play his brother. And no, and then they said, but they'd like to bring you back in for Dean, and I of course was very excited about it, and I came back in and was thrilled. So that's kind of how it all.
So by the time you guys actually performed together, you had already had the parts. They weren't auditioning.
Well, no, we didn't have it. Did we? Officially.
No, we had
to do
they were the only actors we brought in network, because you have to have a network
formality
audition.
of the
It's
network.
usually a really terrifying process of
Yeah.
these guys and gals that you audition with all year long, and it's 5 people that you're very, very afraid of sitting in the room with you going for the same part. And when we got there, it was like, hey, where's everybody? There is nobody.
Just you and me, pal.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so we started typing numbers down on a page, and
Yeah, well, we went in, and that was the first time we actually met, and then we did the scene together for a room full of executives, and that was that.
Okay.
And we've hated each other ever since.
yeah. I poisoned your waters.
How about everyone else on the panel? Kim, we could start with you and talk about how you became involved with Supernatural.
I read for Sam.
Did everybody read for Sam?
David Nutter, who directed the pilot, is a good friend. He did season 1 of X-Files, and he called and asked if I would do a favor and come in and do 1 episode, because I was kind of semi-retired after X-Files. Very semi-retired. And I came in and did a show called Dead in the Water. Enjoyed myself, fell in love with Jan and Dean, or is it Sam and Dean? And I was driving home to my home in Missouri, and they called me and said, we want you to come on as a part of the team. And I turned around, and here I am. So, and I'm having a good time.
Yeah. Thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what we do without Kim up there. He's unbelievable.
Kim, John?
I know what you do. You get another guy.
No, there is no other guy.
Not true. No other.
There is no other guy named
No.
Kim.
Yeah. You know, if this whole thing fails, you guys can go right into stand-up.
I don't want to stand up to him. I have to stand up on apple boxes all the time.
I'm pretty lazy. I'd rather sit.
John, how'd you-
Meanwhile,
Meanwhile.
what he doesn't know, what he didn't know about this whole process is that after we had him direct, I guess that was our 4th episode. We had the pilot with David Nutter, Wendigo with David Nutter, Hookman with David Jackson, and then Kim came in, and immediately, I think, from day one, we were on the phone with everybody. We were on the phone with Peter and with Eric and saying, this guy is incredible. Who is this guy? And David Nutter had sort of given him this very sort of mysterious, you'll love Kim kind of sentence at the very beginning, because we were going over this list of 7, very Jedi. Yeah, it was like,
You'll love
who is Kim? Who is this guy? Oh, I knew him from this. Who is Kim Manners? You'll love Kim Manners. And sure enough, we were like, what? And he came on, and he was just incredible. And he was just incredible. And can I borrow?
Yeah.
And
Wow.
and so we basically begged and pleaded to get him.
A job, just a job. That's all I wanted.
He was hungry. He was, he kept trying to bite my arm. I was really worried.
Yeah, I don't want to embarrass Kim, but what was so incredible about him?
About
About him.
Who?
Well, I think that Jared and I we just responded well to him. I mean, he directed in a fashion that we really liked, and you know, it was kind of a set where guys could be guys, and he wasn't someone who directed, you know, behind a screen with a telephone somewhere in L.A. and was like, you know, doing over and over, and then a close up and a close up, and let's get out of here and move on to the next set. He was in there, and you know, a story about another episode that he directed, Bugs. This was a scene where we had to get in to a room with.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's you know, we get in this tiny little room with 65,000 bees, and the whole camera crew and the sound crew and everybody's got full bee outfits on, and then they're like, "All right, Jared, Jensen, hop on in."
And don't swat them because it makes them angry.
And yeah. And I'll give it to Kim. He said, you know what? If you guys don't have bee suits on, I'm not either. And he went in there with shorts and a T-shirt and a monitor, and sat down on a box and directed us from inside the room with bees crawling all over our faces. Wow. It's that kind of relationship with Kim.
Great. John, how'd you get involved?
I was going through the annual ritual of staffing season. I had a pilot that didn't go, so I was available and reading all the pilots and taking meetings, and read the script and loved it, and met Eric and loved him.
Aww.
And I know. And
John's my guy.
yeah, it's not. It's true. There are a lot of, you know, I spend a long time on the X-Files, and I'm offered a lot of scary television shows every year. It's like, will you do this? Yeah. And this one just struck me right away, especially when I finally saw the cut of the pilot, because it had those two things that I think you need to have a successful show like this. One is a great franchise, which is the engine that runs the show. The idea that the two brothers on the road trip with a very personal agenda is just great, and you can imagine, I can see instantly 5 years of suffering for these guys in episode after episode. And the second thing, honestly, is casting and chemistry. And chemistry is something you can't manufacture, and these guys have it, and they're so great to write for, and they're so fun to write for.
Worth a try.
Yeah. So I said, yeah, I'm coming on.
Okay. Bob, how about you?
Can I just watch them? They had actually made this pilot, and I saw the pilot and really liked it a lot. And I think what the studio wanted was, after they saw it and they got picked up, and the studio at one point probably said to themselves,
Just keep it. You can't get anything done.
Throw it on there.
this is what it's like to direct them, too. The studio said, well, we can't give $40+ million to Eric Kripke.
Yeah, that's very true.
And let him run wild. So they said, what we need is, you know, some... This is so hard.
These people are very tired.
So they thought they needed some, you know, an experienced hand to guide the young man through these rocky waters. The young man, of course, felt, what do I need this old fart for?
No way.
Anyway, we met a number of times, and finally Eric got comfortable enough with me for us to join up and partner on this thing. And it's interesting because, I mean, we are sort of different generations, and we approach drama in kind of a different way. But as we sort of work together, we found that we really arrive at the same place, even though kind of the methods are a little different of how we get there. And it's.
Can you explain what you mean when you say that coming from different generations, you approach drama in different ways?
Well, I don't know if that's a generational thing, but I'm very.
Sober.
Drunk. There's that, yeah. This is so boring, but I kind of come in everything from a character standpoint of view. It's all about character to me, and I like to let the plot work itself out, given what the characters are going to do. And what I'm interested in the scenes is how it drives the plot, but I'm most interested in how the characters react to it. And so the stories I do tend to get a little like this, but the character stuff is probably interesting. Eric really works very, very hard on the stories and gets the plot down and knows that once his plot is good, the character stuff will come naturally to that. So we sort of go like this when we're in the room together, and we'll arrive at that place which both things are serviced, and I think we're really in sort of one voice now, that we rarely disagree on stuff, and it's I've worked alone for a long time, so it's kind of really cool to have a partner.
Yeah, and to blow smoke up his ass for a minute, he brings a depth and maturity of character, of just depth to the drama that I could not do. Me alone, like, is boogeyman. and like all of a sudden with him, like, we have a show where you have these characters that are psychologically rich and true, and Bob is behind huge amounts of that. So the show would not succeed at all without him. So.
Come on, give him a
You guys
kiss.
can
would
do
you?
it. We can.
No,
Yeah.
I like that.
Let me
Guys
ask
wanna
one more
open it
question
along?
before I before I open this up. But this is for the writers mostly, which I guess is Eric and John. But Eric, you've been quoted as saying that this show differs from a lot of the other suspense or supernatural shows that you said there, because you don't want to get involved so much in those long, drawn-out stories or the mythology so much as you just, I don't know whether these are accurate quotes, but you want to just focus on scaring people and on the urban folklore and so on, and just scaring people. But I think I speaking for myself and maybe some people out here too, I find the mythology with the kids with their mom and their dad and one of the really compelling parts of this story. So I'm wondering how you just you start to see, even with the last episode that aired last Tuesday, you're starting to see you guys are coming back to that. And I'm wondering, how do you decide when it's time to sort of veer away from what X-Files used to call the Monster of the Week story and come back to the mythology of the show? So it's really for John and Eric. How do you decide when it's time to do that? Or
John?
Two things. I mean, a lot of painful, hair-pulling discussions and arguments, and when should we and when shouldn't we. But part of it is driven, too, by just the nature of television. You want to save some of your big moments for sweeps. And so you kind of work the season around that. It works actually a very nice 5 or 6 episodes that are non-mythology, and then you can pull the mythology back. And again, due to the nature of television, you want to end the season with something astounding. And also going back to what Bob was saying, the mythology is all about character. It's all about what the boys are going through and family. And so that's where we are going to head when we want to do something spectacular. So
Yeah, we have, and surprisingly have stuck to it. We have a mythology plan for season 1. We also have, God willing, a pickup. We have mythology plans for season 2 and season 3, but we have this plan of where the story goes yeah!
on the CW.
On the CW.
When do we get to see this?
And so, it was sort of the plan, which is the first first 7 episodes. You wanted to be these self-enclosed stories so you could kind of pick up new viewers, and then you start threading in a little bit more mythology. But I think it's a balance because, it's my own just, kind of personal taste, which is, I like I want a satisfying story every week too, and Lost is an untouchable show. It's a brilliant and unbelievable show, but I find the endless mystery, my own taste, frustrating. And if you're going to give ongoing mystery, all right, people who believe. And if you're going to give ongoing mystery, at least give like a rollicking, badass story apart from it that can have a beginning, middle, and end, and you can be satisfied, and the good guys can win, and you can have the experience of being told a story, and then thread in the ongoing mystery. So I think it's keeping a lot of different plates spinning, and it shouldn't be any one thing or another.
do you know where this story ends?
I do actually. Yeah.
Does anyone else on this panel know where the story ends?
Yeah, but if
You
we
do.
tell you, we have to kill you.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard because you never know when you're going to get canceled or if you're going to go, 37 years like Gunsmoke or something.
Oh, God, please.
But yeah,
The boys are in walk-ups.
yeah, right. They'll finish up the season and then they'll slowly die.
Yeah.
And but yes, we have really a if I could somehow find out what the last season was going to be or a 5-6 year plan. I mean, I sort of know the final battle, as it were, that all shapes up. And but yeah, sort of.
We're gonna have to wait.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take some questions from the audience. I'm gonna call on two people. First question and second question. Please wait for the mic because this event is being taped, so we need to be able to hear you. Okay, there's one all the way in the back over there, and then there's one in a green shirt right down here. We can start down here with the green shirt and then go to the back question.
Sorry, I had to take out my gun. Hi, let me just say, I'm originally from Sacramento, so I wanted to know if there's any significance with their dad, John, being in Sacramento twice, or just random, or spoilery, or...
You wrote it, John. Why is he in Sacramento?
I don't want to give it away yet.
So yes, there is.
So there's...
I'm not going to tell you either.
I want to know.
Yeah, why?
After.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Tickets for a Sacramento
Yeah,
Kings game.
So the answer is that there is, but you're not going to say what it is.
Exactly.
Okay. And speaking of location, is there any significance to Lawrence, Kansas? That it started in Lawrence, Kansas?
I have to give that in.
I would say, well, if anyone does
In other words, yes.
yes. There is, and the one thing I'd say is because we tend to be really research oriented in our show and about American urban legends, and there's a very famous urban legend near Lawrence, Kansas.
That somehow factors.
Yeah, if you guys go home and do Google searches on Lawrence, Kansas, some stuff will come up.
Okay. Do you guys know what it is? Jared and Jensen?
I don't think I've ever told you.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I'm deciding when I'm going to tell Kripke what it is. Yeah. Honestly.
Okay. In the back all the way?
Hi, just want to say I'm from Texas too, so. Woo! Anyway, I had a question for everybody. What urban legend or folklore really does scare you guys?
Kim?
Nothing scares me.
That's true.
I direct television.
I believe it.
And so, if you can live through that, nothing scares you. Really.
Good answer.
Yeah, well, it's true. What scares you, John? Late
You
scripts.
do. Yeah, you do, Kim. When you call me and say, "Where's the damn script?" That's frightening.
Any
What about
urban?
you guys?
I've been dealing with them all season, man.
Yeah. All of them. What about those bees?
You know,
Bees, that's what I'm saying.
I'll say something. My daddy used to make me watch a show called Shadow Man or something when I was growing up, and it was about a shadow that lived under this kid's bed, and he was sort of, what's that? And anyways, it was his buddy.
And he's
he
here
wasn't
tonight.
very popular in school, and so the Shadow Man started kind of getting all the bullies for him, and then one day he became another kid's Shadow Man and got him. Yeah, it's probably not as scary as
Someone,
Go ahead.
someone has to give her a straight answer.
Yeah.
Hookman freaked me out when I was a kid. The Killer with a Hook. All the different stories of the Killer with a Hook. Of the Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light? I thought was really cool. And there's the Licked Hand. Have you ever heard the Licked Hand, which is a really cool one? And so like that was always really sort of freaky for me.
Okay, let's take two more questions. We'll get this one down here, and there's one all the way in the back, right next to you. Right. Go ahead.
In the pilot, we know that when Sam wanted to go to college, John told him to get lost. And he's in presumably his fourth year because he's interviewing for law school. But he says that he hasn't talked to Dean in 2 years. Is there an answer to what happened 2 years ago?
You mean is that?
Eric? I have an answer to that. Well, I know you're supposed to, do what Scheiben does, which is kind of go, you'll find out. But fact of the matter is these things happen so fast and furious, and that it was actually a mistake. We wanted. Sam's character is supposed to be a junior in college and starting the interviewing process for law school, and so hasn't seen him since he left. So he spent his freshman year and his sophomore year away from Dean and hasn't seen Dean. Then this is beginning of junior year. This is fall of junior year. So it's been technically 2 years as he's beginning the process. But because what happened, you guys, online, like sort of putting it all. Because what happened 22 years ago, he was slightly older than a junior should be, so no one sort of bought that he was a junior, and so there was a lot of discussion of these 2 lost years, and I just like, like, just a mistake.
You want it back there.
He was ordinarily
But hold on, let me give the real answer. You'll find out.
Now you're talking.
Okay, in the back.
Are there any stories about the show being too scary, like you do trade-offs with the network, like they say, well, you can have 2 seconds of this, bloody face if you do this or that?
Yeah, we've run into a few times this season, haven't we?
Nightmare was the first time.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you get into really strange discussions of can we not see the decapitated head roll? And then you start arguing about, well, can you do a half a turn? You say, okay, you can do a half a turn, but the blood gush can't be for 2 seconds. It has to be for 1 second. So those are ongoing discussions. But actually, the network's been great. We really pushed the envelope in every sense, and they let us get away with more than I thought they would.
There was also the when
The gun rig.
Yeah, the gun rig with me. When
Yeah,
when,
the
Dean was
Nightmare.
shot in the head.
The episode Nightmare was the first and only time we've ever had issues with standards and practices. And so everything else, they just were like, give us more. And we were shocked by that. But there's a scene where it's a vision, it doesn't really happen, but where Dean gets his brains blown out in Nightmare. And we actually rigged, and we thought, like, we rigged it so...
Yeah, the rig was awesome.
Yeah, you rigged it so the shot actually goes into his forehead, and the blood explodes out the back onto the wall. And we were like, ha, this is our lead, and we're just, But, and Network was like, no way.
This giant backpack filled with, like, grapes and corn syrup. And it was this tube just kind of coming right out of the back and from the head on, and I had a little button in my hand, and they just yelled action, and we timed it with a gunshot, and I hit the button and gave a reaction, and the whole wall went splat. By the way, it was an awesome rig, but then they ended up having to cut to just the splat, and then back to me.
Back to him with the hole.
Yeah.
But the director of that episode is here tonight, sitting next to my wife as it is.
Phil
And-
Segrisha.
Stand up.
Really
Stand
good
up.
job. Stand up.
And when I looked at those dailies, and I called Phil, and I said, he said, how are they? How are they? Because Kim can tell you, all us directors are so self-confident that we don't need constant approval or anything. And he said, I said, they're great, Phil, but what the hell are you doing? And he said, well, they'll look at that and they'll give me all the rest of the stuff. So.
We actually play a game with BSP, Broadcast Standards and Practice, where we cut the show and we cut it way too violent. So then they come in and they go, well, you have to take out 4 frames of that shot. And you go, oh, God, not 4 frames. Yes, 4 frames. So you take it out, but you always knew that you didn't need those 4 frames. So we kind of stacked the deck.
Nice. Okay, there's a question over there in the corner, and there's one back there. Over there, too.
Oh, okay. Well, we've had the question about what urban myths scare you, but for those of you who are actually on set regularly, has there ever been, a blood splatter or that freaky scarecrow or anything that just really creeped you out just to be around on set, even though you knew it was plastic or, Caro syrup or something?
I know just one time randomly, we were filming Skin, the episode where he's a shapeshifter, and we were inside this house, this brilliant house. Yeah, it was a great episode. And we were inside this house, and just this clock on the wall just up and leaned over and fell off. Just this round clock. No one was near it. No one was hammer on the wall outside. It just kind of fell off, and everybody sort of looked around. But instead of kind of going, who did that? We were all just like, ignore it and go back doing it. Decided to not look into it any further, the way real brave people do it. So
The show Asylum was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That was shot in an actual abandoned mental institute, and so the halls and the rooms and were all very used at one point, and you know, it's said that the crew says not to go up to the 4th floor, and then, you know, don't. And I remember we broke for lunch, and I thought I'd be, you know, clever and take a shortcut. I came down a stairwell and went into one door, and it was just a long, dark hallway because there's no lights on. The only lights on are what the film crew puts out, and I was like, well, it's not that long. I can make it. That freaked me out.
Okay.
Dean Winchester, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you.
Afraid of nothing.
In the back over there. Yeah.
Now that there's a new network that you're probably going to be moving to, the CW, are they going to loosen up and give us a little more NC-17 like we got the Jensen storyline the other week?
Bob?
I'm confused. What?
Oh, right.
How can I forget? Thank you for that, man.
Sure. Happy birthday, Jensen.
Yes.
Happy birthday. You know, I mean, CW is huge on full frontal male nudity, so. I think there's a lot in store. Stay tuned. You know, I mean, we'll give them love interests and love stories as it's appropriate. We're gonna need it.
Okay, well, take one there and one in the middle.
Oh, geez.
One down here and one in the middle. Yeah, you just.
Hi. First of all, thanks so much for being here. If you guys are always like this, can I come work on your set?
Yeah. Thank y'all guys for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
you.
Honestly.
So we came into this story when the boys are already adults, and I know there's a lot to explore in the future, but I was wondering about the past, because I know that there's a lot of speculation about what their childhood was like growing up, moving around, how much Miller time Dad was doing, and how Sam and Jess met, stuff like that. So I was just wondering if you were going to explore that aspect of their lives.
We just, it's funny you say that, we just yesterday, actually, I think, I'm talking to Brett, who's at the network, I think you're getting a cut on Monday. Of an episode that not only do the boys in present day, you know, deal with a creature, but it's a creature they dealt with in the past, and there's extensive flashbacks to Sam and Dean and John as they're, you know, as the boys were children and Dad, and you get to see an element of what their past was like, of what their childhood was like. And I'm really happy with how it turned out, and you know, we wanted to try it once, and I think it'll be happening a lot more because there's this great 22-year window of what happened, and there's a lot of story there that you can flesh out. So I think we're definitely going to go there because it's coming up in I think April, that episode, and I was really pleased with how it turned out. So yeah,
Another positive is that if Little Sam and Little Dean are filming, Big Sam and Big Dean are sleeping.
Yeah, right. So there's that.
So keep pushing.
Yeah.
Keep pushing.
Yeah.
Flashbacks.
Very important.
Okay. There was a question there in the middle.
Oh, okay. Dean always wears a certain necklace. Does it mean anything?
You gonna hang me out to dry on this one?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we can't. I mean, it does, but we can't.
Yeah, it does have significance, and but we can't talk about it.
Yeah.
It's from Sacramento.
That's a great question, though, that you picked up on that necklace. So. Okay, I'm trying to spread them out. You got somebody back there? Okay, and then this woman down here in the red shirt. But go ahead in the back first.
I thought I heard you guys mention on a show one time you guys do green screen, blue screen, that kind of thing for special effects. Has that gotten a lot easier for you to do and kind of, fake it?
Yeah.
And the second part to the question was, when the DVD set comes out, are you guys gonna have a lot of behind-the-scenes jokes? Because, yeah, this is funny.
We actually just had a film crew on set with us this past week doing behind-the-scenes stuff for the DVD. So, going back to your first question, the green screen and stuff, we do a lot of. I said do.
You said doo-doo.
You said doo-doo.
We do work a lot with
Doo-doo.
Jared, you can take this one.
As Kim and Jensen were saying, we do. And no, we do. It was. I guess it was a big learning process for everybody. Just it's a very interesting sort of task to be given to, especially these kind of crazy, either emotional sequences or these crazy physical sequences. When they're like, all right, now you're in the woods and it's dark and it's scary and you're hearing things, and then you look behind you and there's just this big blue wall with tape and a couple crew guys standing back there smoking cigarettes and cursing and showing off tattoos. And so it's I think speaking for myself, I hope I've gotten more of a hang of it.
And aside from just the actual green screen of it, we can just be in a normal set and they're going to visual effects will then put in something like
Right.
Phantom Traveler with the smoke that would come out of the vents and stuff like that. That's not something that we obviously see. So we have to pretend that it's there, and that there's no real green screen work going on there. But there's also an episode coming up that Kim directed called Shadows, and we deal with.
Yeah, it's just there. Well, what happened in Shadows? Did you see?
I haven't seen it.
Do you remember that? He loves my work.
Yeah, that's right.
If you remember the shot where Meg did the high fall, they hung her 6 feet off the ground, and she was picked. We call it picked with 2 wires on her hips, and she was looking up at the camera and doing this. Hello. She was looking up at the camera doing this, and she just laid back and she just laid out and flattened out, and they dropped her visually with the computer 7 stories. She never went anywhere. That was all just in one place.
And then when we ran up to the window, she wasn't even there, and we were actually staring at a big red X.
Yeah.
So Jensen, does that mean that you guys actually have to act?
No. I'm actually not here right now.
Oh, I'm kidding.
We're actually in Canada. These
are our body doubles.
Yeah, over here.
I actually have 2 questions. The first one is, Jensen, in a past interview, you said you were a Christian. I was wondering, is it hard to do this kind of show, like having that background? And the other question is, in an episode, I don't remember which one it was, you gave the phone number where you're trying to reach your dad. You're like, give me a call, this is my number. But whenever you call, it says this is Dean Winchester, and it says leave your coordinates. Did you ever hear, can you actually leave voicemail on there? Did you hear, did you have a lot of fans leaving messages at that number? Because it wasn't a 555 number. It was very small to pick up on, because my sister and I, we watch it. She watches it at her place, I watch it at mine. And I was like, did you see the number? She's like, was it a real number? And so, anyway, that was my question.
If you want to actually call him, it's 800 wet legs. This is.
Don't give out his number.
Oh, you changed it? Scratch it.
I'm lost. What was the question? What?
Something about.
You're a Christian.
Yes. Okay. Your first question. Yes, I was raised with a very religious family, and in that, what I do. This is this is acting. We're telling stories. I portray a character. Does my grandmother cringe sometimes? Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's something that I'm cool with. And then as far as the phone numbers, and I think there's even website. There's a
when they
email.
call. Yeah, every
There's
so
actually
often.
been a huge response to it.
Yeah,
what I
we
know.
got a couple. I listened. I mean, we couldn't listen to all of them, but there was a couple thousand voicemail messages of people who called, and I mean, I listened to maybe 20 or 30 of them, but some of them are hilarious. They were like, Sam and Dean, there's a ghost in my attic. You have to come quick. And those were my favorites.
That's awesome.
All right.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yes.
Can you do that again?
Take one all the way in the back up there and one right here in the front.
Hi, my son and I are really big fans, and you guys are great. And I want to know what kind of car it is you drive. It's great.
It's a 67 Chevy Impala.
They're going to sell well.
Yeah. There it is. And we've got about...
We've just bought our fifth one.
Fifth one. We got about 5 of them. Yeah.
That's why you can't find them on eBay, because
We have them all.
Right there.
Okay, so let's talk about the music.
Yes.
Yes. All right. I grew up in the 70s. I grew up on the mullet rock. So, yeah, let's talk about where the inspiration came from for that.
That was something that was really important to me coming into the show, coming into the pilot. I'm from a small town in Ohio, and this is the music I listened to, and I was a huge Zeppelin fan, and so when it came time to write the pilot, and produce it, it was so important to me that it have that music and not have, all due respect to my beloved network, not have the music that's usually on that network. And it was so important to me. I was so rabid about it that in the original draft of the pilot, I even wrote in the script, I wrote cue music, and you can take your anemic alternative pop and shove it up your ass. And the reason I wrote the scene when they're in the pilot, they have the scene where they're talking about tapes, and he's like, AC/DC, Motorhead, Metallica. And the reason I wrote that in is I said, well, if we shoot that and it gets into the pilot, then we have to use my music because it's in the show, and they can't put in some Sarah McLachlan in post. So this is and we've had a great time. I mean, with Phil also in post production, and with Bob of figuring out these songs and coming in one morning and being like, ooh, Billy Squier, what about Billy Squier? And I think it's like a real signature to the show, and it's Midwestern, it's like two guys from Kansas in a muscle car, and this is the music they listen to. So, but I love it. There was the other night was Joe Walsh, Rocky Mountain Way, and I'm just laughing my ass off. I'm like, yeah, Rocky Mountain Way on the WB.
It also spreads because one of the editors said to me, and he's a very hip guy and really good musically. I walk into his room, we were going through songs. I said, well, do this song, this song. And 2 days later, I walk in, he goes, Bad Company's really good.
Okay, let's take 2 questions from the middle. One over there and one on the other side. On this side and then one on that side.
Hi, I'm an aspiring actor, and I wanted to know...
We're sorry.
I wanted to know how hard was it for you two to get started acting?
Go ahead.
All right, I'll field this. It's not the first time I've actually heard that question, and I'm so at a loss for what to tell you. I have a very interesting story. When I was in high school, I won a contest to be on the Teen Choice Awards and hold trophies and give them to Freddie Prinze Jr. when he got best hottie of
Pretty
the
much
world.
been downhill since
It's
then.
basically gone downhill. Yeah, and I wrote on Freddie Prinze's coattails. No, and I met an agent at the show. I met a manager actually, and Dan Spiel I'm still with to this day. And my girl Sandy over there. We started kind of talking over the phone with sides, And he had faith in me, and I was going back to high school, and I have a mommy that's a teacher and a daddy that was an accountant, and they were like, he's finishing high school, and I was like, why can't I go act? And anyways, I flew out for about a week during pilot season, and I booked a pilot, and then I used that money to go out during the summer. So I had a really kind of crazy, interesting story, but I have a lot of buddies who are, much more talented and more committed than I am that are still struggling to make it. So it's a tough industry, but just, keep working hard and keep making yourself better.
Jensen, how did you get started?
Well, I mean, like Jared said, there's really no set formula for how we, have gotten to where we've got. Mine was kind of a sheer luck thing as well. I was doing theater in Dallas, and I happened to have a talent agent from LA sitting in, and came up to me afterwards and gave me his pitch, and I said, "Nah, you're full of crap." And I told him to bugger off, and then he went up to my folks and kind of gave them their pitch as well, and I guess they seemed a little bit more interested. And so a few years later, after his persistence, I finally said, maybe I'll go out there for a couple of months and check it out, see if he'll talk the talk. And I came out and started working right away, and it was about 8 or 9 years ago.
Okay. So question on that side.
First of all, Shadow was a kick-ass episode, and I want to thank you all for that one because it was awesome. But let's get down to what really matters. What alcohol do you guys like to drink?
What alcohol do you got?
Because I see a lot of beers and stuff in the episode, and it's always my thing to place what y'all are drinking. So I was just wondering, are you hard guys, light guys? What do you like?
Oh, my mom would kill me.
Yeah, can we cut the tape right now?
We're rolling, check. Actually, one of the funny things about the beers is our prop master, Chris Cooper. He's some of the beer labels. They're always fake labels.
Like
God?
a staple gun.
And they're always fake labels, and it usually has something to do with the city that we're filming that episode in. Like if we're in Texas, it'll be like Lone Star Lager. If we're in Minnesota, it'll be like Timberwolf Ale or something like that. But we're Texas boys. I think.
Yeah, we'd probably drink what you imagine a couple Texas boys would drink.
Put in a cup.
That's right.
I have a question for you guys. I'm curious if this is possible to answer this question. If you could pick a scene that you either wrote or acted in or directed that's probably like your favorite scene that you've worked on since the show started, and if you could tell me why. Anybody want to take? Kim, go ahead.
I'll take that. Shadow, where the boys finally saw their father. Shadow was, I'm incredibly proud of because there were 4 great scenes. The scene where the boys were arming up and Dean blows at Sam and says, "Why do you think I got you out of Stanford in the first place? Why do you think I came to get you? Because I want us to be family again." And I'll tell you, Jensen had a tough time with that, and we kind of arm wrestled over it. And to get him there, and because Dean is, he's got his walls up, and to break down that wall for just a minute to look into Dean's heart was magical for me. And then when they met Dad in the apartment and in the alley, it was just, we worked very hard.
Mm-hmm.
The boys, their game of tennis improves 2,000% when they work with Jeffrey Dean or somebody like Nikki Acox. We find the nuances, and in acting, it becomes the crap that it is, and it becomes real life, and the words become their own, and the emotions become their own, and that's special for me.
And not just to say this, but having a great director to tell you exactly what to do doesn't make it hard. So, I think Jensen and I would tell you 1,000 times every day that, Kim got it out.
Lucky as hell to have him.
Hey, Jensen, did you not want to do that scene because you thought that Dean wouldn't say that?
Yeah, sometimes I guess I can be a little protective of just of Dean and him showing emotions, and I always and as an actor, as you grow with a character on a series, you really kind of become close to it, and you protect it. You protect that character, and I guess that was probably what that was, and I wasn't real sure how much of the layers to peel away in that scene, and I guess in that confusion, I kind of put up my own barrier, but if there was anybody to get me through it, it was Kim, so I'm glad he was there.
Great.
Yeah.
John, you have a favorite scene?
There was a moment in Skin that I'm proud of, and actually it sort of says something about how we tell our stories, because we're always saying, okay, we want to do this type of episode, we want to do this monster, but how would Supernatural do it? How is it special for our show? And I remember being in Kripke's palatial office of Warner Brothers.
So fountains.
Yeah, and talking through the story of Skin and the shapeshifter, and obviously, there's all kinds of shapeshifting that's been done on television and movies, et cetera. And he said, we got to find our own. And we kicked it around and came up with that scene where shapeshifter Dean goes down in the sewer. And I remember reading some online post that some friend sent me that someone else, a fan, was watching the show and giving her impressions as she watched it. Oh my God, Dean's taking his shirt off. And then followed immediately by, oh my God, he's taking his skin off. And I knew then that we had it, and I was very pleased with that.
Oh, the things we do.
Jensen, you have a scene?
Yeah, one of my favorite. It's not really a full scene, but it's more of a shot. And it was in Dead in the Water, with Kim directed, where I saved the little boy out of the lake, and coming up out of the water, and it was a slow motion shot. It was very emotional, coming out of the water, and that was really neat. But the build up to that, shooting it was really. I had this 10-year-old boy in my hand, and I'm keeping both of us afloat with one arm, because I can't move my feet, because I got two divers holding my feet below me who are about to pull me under. And I'm fine. I grew up swimming in lakes and all my life, but to have that sensation of somebody pulling you underwater, especially when you've got the life of a 10-year-old little actor in your hand, and you're trying to keep him afloat, and he's got to play dead. It was a little overwhelming, and it was definitely unforgettable. But we got through it, and it turned out to be an awesome shot.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
Jared?
You know what? I've had some time to think. Well, they've answered their questions, and I'm going to go back to a scene in Wendigo that we did at the very, second episode of the year. And I remember there was just such a long period of time between the pilot and Wendigo. It was from March, April till July, and there were so many questions in my head when I found out we were getting picked up. Like, what's going to happen? Where are we going to start? Like, how do we start? How do we finish? How do we continue this story that we started in the pilot with so many things going down? How do we keep the momentum going? And there was this one particular scene that Jensen and I did on stage where he's got Dad's journal. He's saying, this is what it's about. And Sam is saying, I got to find Dad. And I remember we had a huge day that day. We had like 8 or 9 pages of dialogue. And Jensen and I realized that we had to do this scene. We're like, oh, crap. Like, what? Like, let's go memorize it. My trailer. We sat down in my trailer. And there was an acting coach that I work with whenever I can named Cameron Thorpe there with us. And, he kind of pushed and prodded me a little bit. And I don't know what he did to Jensen. But we were...
I don't want to talk about it.
It was noisy.
Never again.
That's between y'all and the wall. But anyways, we ended up kind of getting the scene and putting something there. And I think it was one of the first times I ever felt like I was hopefully doing what Kripke wanted. Like I felt like I think this is what Eric was envisioning. Like I really felt. For some reason, there's one of those times when you finish a scene and you're like, wow, like, I don't know where that came from, but I don't know, whatever.
I remember seeing the dailies on that too. We were just through the roof. It was incredible.
Bob?
I think my favorite scene is a really quiet scene, and it's at the end of the Faith episode, and that whole episode was really about, I think, very topical for today, about what's what's real faith. And Julie Benz comes in, has a scene with Jensen, and Jensen says to her, I'm not much for praying, but I'll pray for you. And she said, well, that's a miracle right there. And I thought that I thought it was really sweet. I thought it was incredibly well acted with both Julie and Jensen. And I thought that it probably, if people were listening, I think that probably was our finest moment to say something semi-political and be on the right side of that. I just hope it affected people the way it affected me.
I agree with all of those. All of those are incredible scenes. I would also add the scene when Dean first calls his father in home and tells him to come to Lawrence, and just the way that Jensen was able to try to put up those walls, but the walls kept breaking down, and that was amazing. But all those amazing scenes aside, everyone's given such classy answers. I have to say that when the dude stuck his hand in the disposal in home, and then the monkey starts clapping, and we had that shot beneath the sink, and you could actually see all the goo come out, and I said, and we shot it in dailies. I said, they'll never let us use that, and we used it. And it's more probably than any other scare sequence in the show. It's the one that people watch, and they can't even keep their eyes on the screen. And to me, that's sort of the fun of getting the effect out of the audience. So I'm going to say the garbage disposal scene in home.
It's great because that explains what Bob was talking about before with the two different
See,
approaches.
there you go.
Right. Okay, I want to thank you guys. You guys have been a great audience.
Can I say?
Before you go, don't go yet. I also want to thank, first of all, Eric's got something to say.
Well, I just want to say we have a lot of the people who work on Supernatural in the audience, and I want a round of applause for them for this unbelievable season. All of them have done such a... They've all murdered themselves to bring you this show, and we couldn't do it without any of them. So thank you to them.
And I also want to I want to thank you guys, all of you, for not just being here tonight, but also for the great work that you're doing. And you're obviously touching a chord. Thank you very much.
Thank you.